AI agents are getting very good at coding, debugging, test generation, documentation, a lot of activities. That's real in many organizations. But what we're seeing is that if engineering was not the constraint to begin with, or now stops being the constraint because of these improvements, faster engineering output, faster engineering output may just create more work waiting somewhere else. The leadership question is changing from how do we make teams faster to where does this speed actually improve the flow to value. Welcome to Scaling AI from Activity to Impact. And today we'll talk about how AI is shifting our bottlenecks. If you look at most AI programs out there, whether it's within engineering organizations or beyond, they're still being managed as local productivity. Leaders are asking their teams or driving their teams to use AI, to leverage it. We're seeing a lot of activity. We're giving people the tools. AI can save people time. People can produce more. And that's a great start. But it's not really driving the results that that we want to see. The promise that AI brings to organizations is AI should help humans scale. Organizations should achieve much more with the same amount of people. We want to improve the profit, EBITDA per person. We want to see people spending less time on toil and more time in their flow and genius zone. And the translation from people having less waste and more leverage should be that every time we see a person use AI, it drives impact through the fact that these people have more time to provide judgment, creativity, solve problems. The ROI for AI starts with what humans stop wasting time. But the reality is that AI is asymmetric. It's sort of a jagged impact on different areas of the organization. One clear example of that is, of course, coding or engineering. AI coding assistants are great at coding because a lot of the big part of the data set that they have is code that's available through open source. And also because code is a very deterministic activity. Even if you're not sure how to code something, you can try many times and there's a very concrete target function. So AI is great at improving engineering output. But when you look at the end-to-end life cycle of development and product, you see that this impact doesn't really repeat, at least not now, in other areas of the life cycle. And what this shows up at as that while engineering speed is improved significantly, you can argue it's 10x, x for x, it depends on the environment. The other aspects that are needed in order to build awesome products and get to the point that our customers or users, whether internal or external, are actually using them, are not moving as fast. They're not moving as fast because AI is not that great at helping these organizations, and also because it is harder. It is harder to get AI to help us with product discovery or with product adoption. The observability feedback loop is harder. There are harder things. So a lot of organizations are just letting people improve in the areas where it's easy for them to improve. And that creates local productivity, which is simply not enough. You can 10x engineering, but if engineering is no longer the constraint, that output will create congestion downstream, or it might create an environment where the engineering organization is starving. It doesn't have what to work on. In the short term, that's maybe okay because they probably accumulated technical debt and gaps in test automation that they can spend quite a while addressing. So I wouldn't be surprised if in your organization, you're not fully seeing the impact of this starvation bottleneck yet. One of the other advantages of working on technical debt is that validating technical debt work is much easier than validating new functionality, new features, because you're not really changing the behavior of the system. All you're doing is changing something internal that is observable internally. Or even if you're fixing quality issues, and we know many teams have quality gaps, that's also relatively easy to validate that the system is meeting a quality acceptance criteria. Validating value and outcomes is much harder. So you might be already seeing the congestion, or you might be seeing a situation where that congestion is hidden, it's developing, or is avoided at least temporarily because the engineering organization is able to leverage their improvements to catching up on things that they've been struggling with for years. In any case, at a certain point in time, if your engineering organization is growing fast enough, they will stop being the constraint. They will stop being the bottleneck. The congestion will move elsewhere. One of the useful things you might do is start to visualize this, start to pay attention to where is inventory accumulating. Where do we start to see starvation? The classic way to look at that is to create a value stream, a flow for the entire life cycle of features, products, ideas that you're developing in your organization, in your product or technology organization, and just start to notice what is going on. That's, by the way, true whether you're using AI code assists or spec-driven development or not. That's something you should be doing already. But it's even more important to pay attention to this end-to-end flow and value stream at this point in time. One of the things that you will maybe start to notice is that things that, for example, were explored already and built are starting to accumulate either before shipping to production, depending on how automated that step is for your organization, or maybe they're already shipped. You have continuous deployment. The DORA metrics look good. But when you look at, is this really adopted, used, creating value for people, it's either not really used or you don't really know. And that's an observability gap that, first of all, affects your ability to say, are we getting impact for this? Are we not getting impact? But it also has another effect, which is your AI agents, if they cannot know whether what they're building is being enjoyed, they cannot really close feedback loops. So that's even a worse situation. So figuring out a way to know whether anything that you're building, is it really creating the impact that you expected from it, or the outcomes that you expected from it that are connected eventually to business impact, is a huge, usually important move to get away from AI activity towards AI. One of the tools I really like to use for this is a cumulative flow diagram. Cumulative flow diagram, if you can imagine it, is over time, how much work is in each stage of the life cycle, the product development life cycle. And what you will see in these cases is that while there's, good flow of work into the system, there's a certain point in which there's a stage which just piles work onto the next pile over time. You'll see that working tested software, for example, is growing 10 times faster than it used to, but that doesn't automatically result into improvements in the next stage. It's actually opening a gap between working tested software and shipped and then enjoyed impact software. And that's a good sign that the bottleneck has moved and you need to do something about it. Now, what do you do if you want to? Let's say you recognized that your AI activity is maybe turning into AI output. That's great progress, but you want to shift towards AI impact. Being aware is the first step. It's an important first step. But then what do? You use this view of the end-to-end flow to start to focus on the bottleneck. So now that you found the bottleneck, you can start to apply principles and frameworks like the theory of constraints, which basically says you want to subordinate the focus and the capabilities of both humans as well as agents or AI to the current bottleneck. So if the bottleneck, for example, is adoption of features that you're building or training users on them, then what you should be focusing your AI efforts on is not accelerating coding, but thinking about how can we use AI to drive adoption? How can we use AI to make it easier for people to use our features? At a minimum, make sure that the features that you're building are very easy to use, that they don't require a lot of training and change management effort. That maybe you're using, um, uh, I don't know, AI itself as part of the feature in order to train and onboard and activate usage for these features. Focusing on activating users and getting to the point that people actually use features is something product management has been focusing for a while, especially when we talk about product-led growth. It's not as common when you look at internal systems and internal capabilities, but it's as important in these stages because the challenge of adoption of systems and features is an issue, whether it is your B2B SaaS or whether you're enterprise software or internal systems, or even if you're building AI companies, even if you're building capabilities that are delivered via MCPs. In skills, there's the question of, are people aware of them? Are people using them? Even if you're, for example, an internal organization creating skills for users in the organization and sharing them, are people actually using that? Are people actually leveraging what you're building for them? So that's the question that you want to ask. You want to ask, where is our bottleneck and how can we help the bottleneck scale? One interesting way to do that is to give all of this context about the bottleneck, about what's flowing, give all of this information to your favorite AI, and assuming it's a smart one, ask it to come up with ideas. Don't just tell it what to automate and what agents to create. Ask it, what do you think? What's going on here? What are some of the interventions that we might try to elevate the constraint? Let's go back to the premise for AI. So if the high level premise of AI is, and I think it's a good one, I think it's a positive one, to help people move from toil to genius, to help move people from constant multitasking and routine work to flow mode where they can focus on creative work, have the autonomy for it, mastering new things, and feel purpose about what they're doing. That's true, but we need to apply even this asymmetrically. Not that it's less important for some people than others, but if we want to get impact in our organization, there are people that we should prioritize doing this with. And those are the people that are currently in our bottleneck. So, for example, if engineers are not the bottleneck, maybe they're not the first people that we should focus on with this. Let's focus on the people that are in this bottleneck. Maybe it's product people, product professionals. Maybe it's people in operations. Maybe it's our users. I don't know. We need to look at that. Don't just help everybody scale. Focus on helping the constraints scale. You'll get to everybody at some point. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't give AI tools to everybody. You should. But when you look at your enablement activities, your focus, your guidance, who do you emphasize supporting? This should be one of the criteria. And the result when you're doing that is that once you start to actively manage the bottleneck, work around it, subordinate other areas around the bottleneck to help the bottleneck be more effective, whether it's improving the quality of stuff that feeds into the bottleneck, or using spare capacity in other areas to automate things at the bottleneck that needs to happen in the area of the bottleneck would improve, and that would create better flow, better throughput throughout your entire pipeline, whether that's, by the way, the engineering pipeline or any important value stream in your organization. And at that point, you're shifting from just AI activity anywhere in the cycle to actual impact, to actual value. You're seeing overall throughput of value improve. And by the way, at that point, there would still be a bottleneck. It might be in the same place, it might have moved elsewhere. So you need to go through this cycle continuously. As a bottom line, AI by itself doesn't create new value necessarily. It can create new speed, but that speed only matters when it improves end-to-end flow and achieves impact. And that's not automatic. That's something that you need to focus on. You need to use flow thinking, flow metrics, end-to-end systemic thinking to get to the point that your AI investments are actually the winners in the race to shift from AI activity to bottom line impact for the organization will be these companies and leaders that pay attention to how AI has moved their bottleneck and focus their best human and AI investments and efforts in these areas. If this episode helped you see the gap between AI activity and impact a little bit more clearly, it would be great if you can think of one colleague or friend or leader who you think who you think would find this useful as well. This is Scaling AI from Activity to Impact, where we look at different ways to go beyond the tools, pilots, and activity theater and ask what actually changes the flow of value through an organization. I'm Yuval Yeret. Thanks for listening. All right, so that's the thread I wanted to pull on today. As always, the question I'm focused on is not just are we doing more AI, because we are and we should. It's, is AI helping us create more impact? If this resonates, please subscribe or even send the episode to someone who's trying to move from pilots, tools, and activity towards real value. I'm Yuval Yeret. This is Scaling AI from Activity to Impact.